Now, this may come off as a reoccurring theme, but let me make a couple comments that I want you to really understand. And that is, one thing when you're disseminating knowledge and building content for customers or associates or friends or what have you, sometimes you have to look in the mirror and say, do I practice what I preach? And I think one of the toughest things that we go through as salespeople is the chase. We need to reduce the chase. We need to get callbacks. We need to establish common ground. And so certainly in the past couple of weeks, I've given you some strategies of, how do we communicate together? How can I hold you accountable? What if I don't hear from you? When should I stop chasing you? Things like that. Let me address this from a couple different angles, if that would be cool. So I still go back to the point when we are making phone calls today, whether we like it or not, we have to make these phone calls. And what I mean by that is, I think our association is often, boy, I'm making 75, I'm making 60, I'm making 100 calls a day, I'm getting a lot of voicemails. Well, there are ways around that. So first of all, I use something that is called Phone Burner that automates that process. So I can get about 60 to 90 calls done in about an hour, hour and a half. Number two, I think you have to with warm up is to send something. Send an article on the company. Send a card saying, I'm going to give you a call. Do something to warm up that call. Sometimes, and I have a client doing this right now, who will literally call and say, could you tell me the administrative assistant for Tom Johnson? They are literally looking for the gatekeeper. And then they say, you know what, Joanne, you know what, Tom, before I get a hold of your boss, I wanted to get your advice of how to approach him. And I know that he must get a million phone calls. That's different. So, psychological disrupts. There's a dance. Now, some of you know me. I have kind of a wicked sense of humor. But when people call me and it's a cold calling technique, they say, how you doing today, sir? And I always go into this joking rendition of, well, I'm right in the middle of a sit-up and my back went out. If you hear a siren in the background, I'm going to have to go. What can I do for you? And they're completely stifled. They don't know what to do because I've disrupted their pattern, because what they're expecting is, good, how are you? Great. Well, the reason I called today, and they go right into their spiel. But I want you to think about a psychological disrupt, something that gets them thinking differently. So one idea that I just had with a local company that we just booked as a client is I said, I was referred to talk to you, and by the way, we're a fellow alumni from UW Milwaukee. And the guy goes, oh, really? Completely different. I said, hi, this is Tim Hagen. We're fellow alumni from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And the guy goes, boy, I don't meet a lot of people like that, even though we both work in Milwaukee. It was different. Again, get yourself a fun, clean joke book and try it out and leave some voicemails. Hi, Tom, this is Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching. Did you hear the one about? Tell the joke and say, now, Tom, I know you get a lot of cold calls, but you got to give me an A for creative effort. If you want to hear the punchline, all I ask for is after I give you the punchline, you give me 313 seconds to introduce my company. Then you can hang up on me. And I get callbacks. I don't do it with everybody, but I think that variety, that way of warming up the call to interrupt the customer will serve you well. Now, the other thing I want to share with you as I was looking in the mirror creating content for you is I do send thank you cards. I send cards and I have cards printed up saying, I have an idea for you. And I'll kind of tease a little bit and say, after meeting with you, I've got a program and actually a partner I could introduce you to. I'd love to share it with you. And people call me back. But I think between meetings, what we tend to do is go back to our office, become very tactical. What am I doing? Am I following my sales process? And we tend to forget about differentiating ourselves. Let me give you an example. So here's a screenshot of Jeff Weiner, who's the CEO of LinkedIn. Obviously a very bright guy. And one of the things I just had happen out in Boston with a credit union is I was researching some of the people that were going to be in my session and finding out about their titles. And we had a great session on Friday in Boston. And one of the people actually knew somebody I knew in Boston. And I said, oh, I didn't know you knew this person. I said I was looking on LinkedIn and just trying to get a feel for the company and what the credit union does. And all of a sudden, This person goes, oh, I know that person very well. There could be an introduction. And so what we did is we found out we had some commonality. How do we know that? As you can see under Jeff's picture, there's the word or the phrase second. That means I know somebody who knows him. Now this is old LinkedIn stuff, right? Nothing like brain surgery here, right? But if I look down at the bottom and it talks about 4 mutual connections. Well, one of his connections is Brian Halligan, who's the CEO of HubSpot. We have been a staunch supporter of HubSpot for years. I personally did something for HubSpot years ago that got Brian to personally contact me and say, I cannot thank you enough for what you did for us. I serve as a reference for HubSpot every time they go up against Infusionsoft and Marketo because I know the platforms. And so I've kind of stood out to HubSpot. So what you do is you have to be different between meetings. You've got to do something to stay in front of them outside of the tactical process of let's get back and forth. I'll send you a proposal. I'll send you a list of ideas. I mean, that becomes mundane. So research who knows who at that company. Commonality is powerful. So if I could contact Jeff, or if I contacted Brian and saying, Brian, I don't know how well you know Jeff, but I would love an introduction at LinkedIn. I've never really thought of doing it until I put this together. So between meetings, once or twice a week, find that commonality. So maybe someone on Jeff's team knows me. Now, actually, one of their editorial publishers, Marissa Wong, is a contact of mine, and I email her all the time. She's been very, very good to our company. I've actually sent Jeff, without a response, some emails on her behalf, but she knows that I've done that. So we have to be different between meetings. I'm going to rehash this. Voicemail is powerful. Send a card. Mike, I'm going to give you a call at 2 p.m. on Thursday, and I promise not to be more than 12 seconds late. Now, I know you get a lot of phone calls, but I'm going to show you why I'm different. Now, make some calls in the evening. Tom, I was just researching your company and I saw the article in the Business Journal and the local business publication. I've got an idea for your company I think you would find very, very interesting. Today's voicemail systems allow you to search by name and certainly get a hold of people, but somebody's going to have a timestamp. 9:55, that's different. And again, get a book on humor. Some clean jokes that you can lead the front part of the jokes and say, now, Sarah, I'd love to have you give me a call back. All I ask for in exchange for the punchline is 317 seconds of your time, and then I give you full permission to hang up on me rudely and with a tone of anger if I don't present myself well. And people laugh. But you're interrupting the dance. You're interrupting their thought patterns. So again, I go back to this concept of the sales difference. And we're going to be launching a site called The Sales Difference that'll be totally centered around training and coaching to the sales difference. We're going to have a master course, but we're also going to have targeted courses in prospecting, needs-based selling, voicemail closing. I'm not doing a sales pitch here, but prospecting. Prep the calls with some cards. Take an article and send it in a large envelope. Needs-based selling. Send the questions beforehand. Create a PDF where they can fill in the blanks and print it out and prepare for the meeting or send it back. We just created one of those. Voicemail, I think we've covered that. Be different. Closing. One of the things that I try to do, and I learned this from somebody that is the director of coaching at a company called InPro. When I used to monitor Dave Stevens' phone calls, I would just get off the phone laughing hysterically. Personally, I think he's a genius. He would just literally ho-hum at the end. Well, I got to tell you, Bob, boy, margins are tight today. I know I can't lower cost. Boy, if you could advise me of what to do so we could put this thing to bed, what would you coach me to do? He would turn the client into the manager, the coach, and they would tell him, well, if you could extend your warranty date, that's an interesting idea, Bob. I didn't think of that. And he would be genuine, authentic. I mean, he wasn't making it up. But what he did is he didn't do the expected. See, when we do the expected, we blend in. And by the way, don't think you're different because you sell or you are perceived to sell a different product or service. Most of the time we don't, because the perception commoditizes us. Whether we sell tickets, whether we sell coaching services, it doesn't matter. We are still a salesperson calling. So are you willing to be different so you can stand out? Let me give you one last thought. One of the things that I always go back to is people are drawn by things that are different. Here's why I know that. When you think of radio disc jockeys, who are the most popular people? It's the people that are edgy, that say the controversial things. I'm not saying to be controversial. I am not saying to be unprofessional. I am not suggesting you act like a disc jockey. But what I am saying is they get their audiences by being different. So if you're willing to be different, you're going to prompt your customer, your prospect, to listen differently. So do yourself a favor. Stand out. Doesn't mean everyone's going to respond, but then you're not guaranteed to always blend in. Good luck.